It's wedding season. June is one of the months when many couples are laser focused on flowers, menus, wedding cakes for their big day. Every little detail is discussed to make sure everything goes as planned. But many couples skip a very important conversation about money. Finances are one of the top things married couples argue about and even cite as a top reason for getting divorced. So the earlier you talk about money, the better, especially before you say I do. Joining me for some insight is certified financial planner Regina McCann-Hess, founder of Forge Wealth Management in Malvern. So Regina, it isn't really a very romantic conversation to have, but you really should know your financial situation of your partner before you get married.
Absolutely. You need to know what you're walking into, right? But it's really important to discuss your assets, your debts, anything with a dollar, even your bank account, what your bills are, things like that, because you're going in with two different people and you're combining everything. So if you each know what the other situation is, it helps you build a better money foundation for the future.
What about as far as like college loans and stuff like that? If one of the people that are getting married has a lot of debt behind it, I mean, a lot of people will think it's just the checking account, bank account and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, and that's very common for the kids or young adults getting married now. They come in with the college debt. So that's a big conversation they need to have. And what's their goal for getting it paid off? Do they want to make it a quick goal, like be very aggressive with it, so that when they're ready to buy a house, they have more money for their house and help their credit scores and things like that? Speaking
of credit score, should you know your fiance's credit score?
I think so, yeah, because that's part of knowing what your money foundation is.
You've got a lot of people are big spenders, then you've got the other types that are big savers. Can the two coexist, and should you compare your expectations and spending habits?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's always easier when you both have a common goal in order to be able to do those compromises, because you can't change someone, but you can make better money habits and better behaviors towards your money. And if you have goals and you're working together towards those goals, and if they're important, I think that makes that merger a lot easier.
So if you have one person that wants to buy a house right away, but another one wants to pay off some other debt, I mean, it could be a little bit of a
True.
knocking of heads.
Right, but then if you can compare the cost of the debt versus getting the house, and is that going to decrease the amount of house that you can get if you put it off even 2 years? Does that help the type of house that you can afford and the payments that you could afford? That could help that conversation.
Should someone be the leader? Should roles be defined? I know in my house, my mom always did the bills, and she was always the financial. My father understood it, but he's like, your mother likes to do this, let her do it.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have consistency with it. However, you do need to have constant communication about it, and that would be just like once a month sitting down and saying, hey, here's what we have coming in, here's how much we have going out, and here's how much we're saving of that. Here's our budget, here are our goals, and here's where we are with our goals. We're a little bit behind, we're a little bit ahead, and here's what we need to tweak to make it happen.
You don't want to be in a situation, I guess, like 20 years from now, and one spouse has let the other person do everything on autopilot, and then they're like, well, I didn't know about this stuff.
Yeah, that's why you have to have those monthly conversations. It's really, really important. And also it keeps you part of the conversation and makes you have some skin in the game.
What about combining your accounts or your spending? Should couples, years ago, everyone just put everything in one pot. Should you keep your accounts separate, or should you combine your finances?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of the newer bride and grooms, they're coming into the marriage where they've worked for several years and they already have some assets. So what they're doing is keeping their assets separate that they brought into the marriage, but then they're building joint accounts together with their new money together as a married couple. And that seems to be working out really well. And the great thing about that is they're communicating, because they're forced to communicate about their bills and how much they have to put into the joint account every month.
Now, say you have one person that's coming in with a lot of assets, or maybe comes from a wealthier family. I know everyone's going to send me hate mail on this, but I'm always a very, very big advocate for prenups. I think it's kind of like acting like marriage insurance. When do prenups, should they be brought up into a conversation?
I think at any point they can be brought into a conversation. I think the most important time to be brought in is if it's a second or third marriage, or if you're coming into the new marriage with children from a previous relationship, because you have to protect those children. You have to protect the assets that you've already fought over to make sure that you keep those assets.
Now, I have to ask, if you know your kids are not going to bring up these conversations, should parents or other people say, hey, you should have this conversation before you walk down the aisle?
I think so, however, very gently. I know
You've got 2 kids.
I know my kids roll their eyes at me when I say these things, but I think if you talk to them about, well, if you were going to go into business, it's a business contract, and that's what a prenup is.
Always good advice and insight. Thank you very much, Regina McCann Hess from Forge Wealth Management. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.